my name is Erin Heekin. I am a career coach and counselor with over 7 years experience. And today I am really excited to be joining the MAPS program to discuss resumes and cover letters. And just so everyone knows, we are recording this presentation. So today we're going to talk about creating resumes and cover letters that get you noticed. We're going to talk about formatting and structuring your resume, persuasive writing, application tracking systems, and creating a cover letter. And if you have a question, just put it in the chat. I may answer it at the time if it's related to what we're discussing, or I may hold the question until the end, but just go ahead and feel free to write out a question. So what is a resume? A resume is a formal document that provides an overview of your experience, skills, and education. I like to say that a resume gets you an interview, but the interview is actually what gets you the job. So I'm going to start this conversation out with structuring and formatting your resume. And the first thing that I'm going to say is that you should not use a resume template. And people really hate hearing me say that. There are a lot of resume templates that are offered, through Microsoft Office, Google. You can buy them online, but there's a few things that make using a resume template not really work with your resume. One, sometimes the format doesn't actually fit with your experience, and then you're trying to change the format of the template and the spacing gets off, and it ends up being a really big hassle for you. And then more importantly, templates are not read through application tracking systems very well. And we'll talk a little bit more about application tracking systems, but it's basically where you apply to a job and when you upload your resume. If a resume has a lot of vertical columns, a lot of graphics, oftentimes that information gets really mixed up and makes it hard for the hiring manager or recruiter to read. And if it's hard for them to read and understand, they're just going to go look at another resume. So that is why I really recommend, and most current resume advice that you'll see is to create your resume just using, either Microsoft Office or Google Docs. So the first thing about your format and structure is that a resume is going to be 1 to 2 pages max. If you can, a lot of people will say, oh, it has to be one page. That's not true. But you want to make sure if it is more than 1 page, you're giving them information that is useful to them. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to condense your resume information. One of the long-standing resume rules is to avoid first-person language. So instead of I led my team, you drop the I and it should be led team to complete project. So why we do not use first-person language in resumes? It's just a rule. So additionally, you always want your resume to be, you want to focus on professionalism and efficiency, drawing attention to key information. And you can even do that with bolding. You want to use an easy to read font. You want to use 10 to 12 font size. Of course, your heading can be a little bit bigger, but you definitely don't want it any smaller than 10 because, again, we're trying to make sure that the information is easy to read. And for some people, an 8 or 9 font isn't very easy to read. You want to be consistent with font style, font size, bolding, abbreviations. One thing I like to tell people is that there are no black and white rules to resumes. There's no laws, employment laws concerning how a resume should be written. The information I'm giving you is really based on best practices, but you want to speak to everyone who could be reading that resume. So some people may not be particularly picky about having, multiple font styles or abbreviation styles, but other people may have a strong attention to detail and that may really, you know, persuade how they look at your resume and think about you. So always make sure that you're consistent. You know, decide, are you writing out the name of the state or are you using a 2-letter abbreviation? You know, same thing with dashes, with shortening months. You know, some people will say you need to write out the whole month. I don't think you necessarily need to write out January, but you need to decide, is it going to be the abbreviated version or is it going to be the long version? Another one that people often forget is that if when you are using bulleted information, you have to decide if you're going to put a period at the end of that information or not. And whichever you decide, just be consistent. That is the main rule and the main takeaway. So use the space on your resume wisely. The top third of your resume is your prime real estate, and it is the most important part of your resume. So this is where you want the related information and relevant information that's really going to speak to the job that you're applying to. And oftentimes the most relevant information is going to be in a skills summary, your education, and your experience or work experience. So one thing that I like to say is that the top of your resume is sort of like a thesis. So the top of your resume, you're giving that argument for why you are a good candidate for the job. And then the rest of your resume is really backing up that thesis. You know, additionally, when we talk about resume length, you know, if you can't get their attention in that top third of your resume, they're not going to read 1 page, they're not going to read 5 pages. So that is really where you need to show that you have what they're looking for. You know, and you want to keep it reader friendly, make it concise, focused on relevant details. Use formatting techniques like bold subheadings, bold position titles, definitely use bullet points versus big paragraphs of text. So the average recruiter, hiring manager spends 5 to 10 seconds on your resume. So you need to grab their attention in 5 to 10 seconds. And if they see a big paragraph of text, that is going to be perceived as difficult to read. So they are less likely to really spend a lot of time on that resume. Again, they want it to be easy to get the information that they're looking for. So we talked a little bit about application tracking systems. And what that means, you know, people will say ATS a lot or throw around that phrase. And that's the resume screening software. That is, you know, basically any way that you apply for a job online, you're applying through some kind of resume screening software application tracking system. So, I mean, the exception to that is basically if you are emailing your resume. So, the thing about it is wonderful that we can apply for jobs online. It makes it very convenient. You know, it provides a lot of equity to a lot of people to be able to apply to that job. But the thing that is hard about online job applications is that hundreds of people often apply to each position, and a lot of them are not that qualified. So that's where that resume screening software, ATS, comes in. And ATS basically scans your resume and application. So that's one thing that's important too. If you also have an application that you're submitting to be considered for a job, you want to make sure that the information in the application is as thorough as in your resume, because that ATS could be scanning your resume and application. So they are looking for keywords based on what they're looking for the job. And it flags those desired keywords, and then it ranks those resumes by who has the most keywords, who is most likely to have the skills and experiences they're looking for that position. So oftentimes the resumes with the lowest ATS scores, don't even get looked at by a human being. And that's a lot of the reason why people have such a bad experience applying for jobs, and why, so many people will say, oh, I applied to so many jobs, but I haven't heard back. It is probably that they're not really optimizing their resume for that ATS. And it really can make a huge difference in your job search. So we're going to be giving you more tips really geared towards that application tracking system. So the different sections of a resume, basically every resume is going to include your contact information, skills and or a summary, education, possibly certifications or training, and then professional experience, work experience. Depending on your background, you may have some other sections. You may have apprenticeship experience, awards, honors, professional associations. You may want to organize some of your work into an other work experience, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So, oh my goodness, how did this happen? Well, I do want to say, I don't know what happened to my section on contact information, but one important thing that I want to point out about your contact information is that your contact information should be on the head of the very top of your resume, and you do not need to put your address. So, no one is actually sending you mail. So why take up that valuable real estate with your address when it's really not needed? So generally now you can just put your state, your city and your state, and that is fine. You want to make sure to have a professional email address. It should probably be some combination of your first name, last name, some numbers. Gmail, Yahoo is really preferable. I would not use, if you are currently working, I would not use your current work as your job searching email. You don't know who is looking at your work email. And if you have an education related email, you may not want to use that too, because you want to make sure it's something you have continuous access to. You want to put a phone number, and this is something, that I've had to tell people of all ages and all levels of professional experience. You want to make sure with that phone number, there is a voicemail box that is set up. It is ideal if it has your name attached to it, but even if it's just the standard phone number. But again, a hiring manager, a recruiter, they're not going to spend a lot of time trying to get a hold of you. So if they call and your mailbox isn't full, they just might move on to the next person. Additionally, it is probably in your best interest to have your LinkedIn on your contact information and to have a customized LinkedIn URL, which I'll be doing a workshop on LinkedIn and networking, and I will cover how you can customize your URL. So it says linkedin.com/Erin Heekin as opposed to linkedin.com and a bunch of numbers. So, okay, so after the skills section, after the contact information, which there may be an example of somewhere in this PowerPoint, comes the summary of skills. So this, and let's move on to the next slide. So what is a professional summary or a summary of skills? Because a lot of people will not, may not have had this on their resume 5 or 10 years ago. But again, it's really in line with those best practices, and it's really in line with the idea of getting the most important information on your resume on the top. So a professional summary replaces an objective statement. Again, it's located on the top of your resume. It's the first thing they see. Provides an overview of your skills and achievement, clarifies your goals, allows you to customize your resume for various positions. So again, we want to make sure that your resume is showing that you're qualified for the job that you're applying for. So how are you going to do this? You're going to look at the job that you're applying for and read through that job description and make sure that that language is in your resume as much as possible. So sometimes that even means tailoring or targeting your resume for different jobs. So basically what I'm saying is that sometimes you have to write new versions of your resume for different jobs. If you're generally looking in one field, you're probably not going to have to change it much. So objective versus a professional summary, you can see this objective statement says what you want. And oftentimes it just doesn't really say anything that they might not know about you already. Your objective is to get the job that you're applying for, but you can see that this is really focused on what you want from the job instead of what you have to offer. So a summary or profile gives a short description that is focused on what you can do, what skills, and those specific keywords that they're looking for in that job. So, and then you can see my example summary of skills. So in addition, you can have a summary, naturally adept at technology with training and certifications in cybersecurity, diligent, resourceful, adept at identifying solutions to difficult problems, strong communication skills, and over 7 years of customer service experience. So you want it to be a mix of those hard skills, especially for people that are in the IT, cybersecurity field, what you are learning, those tech hard skills, with some of those more transferable or soft skills. So that can be strong communication, detail-oriented, resourceful, and then you can see too, there is a bulleted list of other skills. And again, this is to really catch their attention and to really demonstrate that you have the things that they're looking for in their job description. Now, if writing a summary of skills or a professional summary, if you just really get stuck on that and it just is something that doesn't come easy for you, just skip that. And you can just make it a skills section and just put a bulleted list of, again, those both hard and transferable skills. That's fine. If you can write out 1 to 3 sentences that sort of describes you professionally, it does look really professional, but it's not essential. What's more essential is that you have that demonstration of those skills right on top of your resume. Okay, so the next section. And I say the next section with an asterisk because it may not be everyone's next section. But for some people, the next section may be education. So this is an area that people have a lot of questions on traditionally. So generally, if you have completed your highest level of education in the last, say, 2 to 4 years, you put your education closer to the top after that skills area. If you graduated over 4 years ago, or maybe even if your if your degree is in something very unrelated to what you're doing and what you hope to be doing, that education could go more near towards the bottom. Because again, it's really about placing these different sections in what is most important for them to see. So if you are applying for something that requires a psychology and a minor in Spanish, then of course you want the education up top. But if that is something you did 10 years ago that you haven't really utilized, then that can be on the bottom. That's fine. The next section, and this is definitely going to be applicant to people who are participating in MAPS or a related program, is going to be certifications. So depending on what you've done, this could be certifications, this could be training, it could be certification and training, it could be badges. Certification, or to be certified, generally means that you have taken an official assessment of those skills and receive a certification. So you want to make sure the language explains what exactly you have. But you want to write those certifications, when you obtained them, if you completed a training course, if you've earned a badge, again, you want to say when you completed it. And with something like a training and a badge, even though badges are very sought after credential that's gaining a lot of weight and a great way to develop skills, it is still a relatively new idea for some employers. So I would write exactly what that involved. Same thing with a training program. So you can see I took this off the website, completed a 500-hour training program that covered the fundamentals of cybersecurity, cryptography, database, okay, blah, 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 blah. Prepared for related certificate exams, and completed hands-on projects to develop skills in cybersecurity. So, if they have never heard of that training or badge, it may not mean anything to them. So give that definition, and also that's another place to get some of those keywords that they may be looking in, and to kind of trick that ATS. We don't want to say trick, but so that so the ATS picks up that was something that you have some training and education on. Okay, so now we're going to get to kind of the meat of the resume, the experience section. And depending on your experience, you may call it employment, you may call it professional experience. You may break it up and have a section that is IT-related work experience or healthcare-related experience, and then later on have a section called other work experience. So generally, you want to go only 10 years past. So if you have been working for over 10 years, you do not necessarily need to put all of those jobs. You may, if there's something that is post 10 years that is very related to what you want to do, you may put it. But you are not expected, a resume isn't a legal document. You're not expected to write every job. So same thing, if you are a person, the stereotype is called job hopping, but really in today's economy, many people have, often have more than one job. They may have a temporary job. They may have a side job. They may have jobs for, less time than traditionally. You do not need to list all of those on your resume. You should list the positions that are most relevant and that you were at for the longest amount of time. So let's look at the next slide. So, and this is where you really want to bring in some persuasive writing. You want to, again, you're targeting your resume for the position. You're trying to write that job description as much as possible targeted towards what you are applying for. So emphasize key details. You really want it to be no more than 4 to 5 bullet points. And that can be really hard. If you had a job for a really long time, if you had a lot of responsibility and things that you're proud of, that can be really hard. But again, we want to make sure that we keep the interest of the person reading it. So, yes, it may be over 5 bullet points, but you want to take out the things that are more job responsibility based and focus on what you did in the job. So you want to highlight your accomplishments and results, not that you were responsible for cleaning the bathrooms every night. So, and one great way to make sure that your resume is accomplishment based is using the SOAR method. So that is a really easy way to take what you did in a job and make it accomplishment based. So what did you do? How often did you do it? How many times? And what is the result of that effort, and why was that work important? So as much as possible, you want to quantify and qualify your job descriptions. And of course, that is not always possible. And then additionally too, you may not remember like the exact percentage of something. You can estimate, make sure it is realistic, make sure that you are not misrepresenting yourself or lying. But you want it to be a number that if you were asked about it, you could give a reasonable explanation, or possibly someone could back you up. So you can see with this person's work experience, they exceeded the utilization standard by 80%. They communicated progress of work order to customers in a calm and professional manner, which led to an 87% satisfaction rate. So not only is it quantifying it, giving a quantified number of that satisfaction rate, it's also explaining, demonstrating, how they did that in a calm and professional manner. That is what led to that high satisfaction rate, those good communication skills. Okay, other sections of your resume. Like I said, there could be many other sections of your resume. It's really what works with your background and experience. But I just wanted to bring out two different points. So a lot of people will ask me what to do if they did not finish a degree. That happens to a lot of people. A lot of people have started college or taken credits in an area and not completed it. And that is totally okay. One, demonstrating that you've taken some college, any college at all, is a good thing. So you can see in this education section, I just put completed 30 credits in musical production and technology. It could be completed 30 credits in the liberal arts. If you don't have to go into every single class that you took, but a general statement about, again, estimate of how many credits you took to demonstrate how long you were in school can be very useful. And this resume is specifically geared towards technology. So, even though music production isn't exactly a cybersecurity, it's demonstrating that a person has had some long-standing interest and skills in technology-related fields. And then if you've had community service, if you're a traditional college student and have had campus involvement, those things aren't the things you're putting at the very top of your resume, but they are important. So if you have space, I would definitely put them. And also, if they're demonstrating some sort of skill that's geared towards what you want to apply to, I would definitely put them down. But you're going to format that just like you would work experience. So does anyone have any questions on resumes? Oh, okay, that is a great question. Should a digital badge be displayed on a resume or just written about? So again, badging is definitely something that employers are looking for, and they're looking for the skills that the badge represents, but it is also sort of a newer thing. So I actually did some research on, generally the rules on resumes and application tracking systems is to not include graphics. So what I would do is I would probably, until someone tells you differently, have that written definition of that badge on the resume that you use to apply online. But also, when you go to an interview, you really want to bring a hard copy of your resume. If you go to a job fair, if you're doing networking. So you can have a separate version of your resume that is specifically for giving that hard copy to. And I definitely would put that badge because that might be something that really catches their eye. But yeah, as of right now, since generally the rule says no images, I would probably stay away from that. Or at the very least, make sure that even if you have the image, the badge image, to make sure you're giving a really good description of what earning that badge means, because that's the most important part. And then the great thing too is that on your LinkedIn, those badges, when you upload those badges, there'll be a visual too. Okay, so we're going to move quickly on to cover letters. So the biggest cover letter question is, do I have to write a cover letter? The answer is maybe, probably. It does depend. So generally in things like it is field specific. So generally in tech, writing technology related jobs, writing a cover letter isn't as important. But I do always say that if a job requires written communication skills, you should definitely write a cover letter. If it is a job that you are so excited about and want so bad and feel like you are so qualified for, then you should go the extra step and write a cover letter. And if you are a person who is making a career transition, you know, if earning these badges and credentials are helping you transition into a new field from what you did before, a cover letter can be a great way to explain the skills that you have from that field that may seem unrelated. So, you know, I will say you don't always have to write a cover letter, but if it is a job you really want, you may want to take that time to write it. And just like your resume, once you start writing them, it gets easier. You know, one thing I always tell not only college students, but older job seekers is that writing a resume and a cover letter is a specific skill set. It is a specific type of writing. It is something that you often haven't had the chance to learn. You know, it's not something that's often taught in high school or even college. And then at some point in life, you're just expected to have those skills. You know, oh, you're an adult, you can write a resume. When really, it's a very specific writing type, and there are rules and trends that change. So, you know, the more you write cover letters, the easier it gets. The more you tailor your resume to that job and really make sure that you're demonstrating those skills and experiences that they're looking for, the easier it gets. So, okay, so back to writing an effective cover letter. So one thing about a cover letter is it doesn't have to be long. Again, a hiring manager, a recruiting manager is looking at lots of applications. They do not want to see one page just full of text. That is very overwhelming. You want, you know, 3 to 4 really short paragraphs, maybe some bullet points, but it's definitely one page. So, and it's the opportunity to make a great first impression. So you want to do a little research on who the cover letter should be addressed to, but if in doubt, you can just write it to the hiring committee or hiring manager. That is fine. But if on the job description you see the specific person that the cover letter should be addressed to, address it to them. So again, a cover letter is going to be 3 to 4 short paragraphs. The first thing that you're going to do in your introduction is you're going to state the specific position you're applying to. A lot of times people don't do that, you know, and their cover letter may not be attached to their resume or the job application. It can get very confusing. So really in the first sentence, you want to say, I am writing to apply to X. It is also customary to mention how you learned about the position. And, you know, a lot of times that could be, I learned about the position through Indeed or LinkedIn, but if you learned about the position because you have a connection in that office, that is the place to say that. You know, if they specifically advertised the position to MAPS participants, you can say, I learned about this position through the MAPS program. You want to, again, express an interest in the position, that you're excited to apply and that you're applying with enthusiasm. And then you want to make a statement of your qualifications. So this is one of the things that people often make a mistake with in their cover letter, is that, again, they focus more on what they can get from a job, why they're, you know, oh, I'm so excited to apply for this job because I know your company offers great professional development opportunities and will send me to lots of different work conferences. You know, that's not describing why they should hire you. So you want to, in that first paragraph, you know, really, again, express, kind of like in your resume, those skills and experiences that you have that are related to the job description and the position. So the body paragraph, this can be 1 to 2 paragraphs. You know, don't stress out. It's okay if it's one short paragraph, but you want to tell and sell. So you do not want to just give the exact same information that's on your resume. You want to expand upon it. And you specifically want to match those skills and accomplishments to what they are looking for in the job. So emphasize your related experience, tell a story, go into more detail. You know, if you often received the highest customer service rating, talk about what exactly you did to ensure that you received that. Tell a story about a specifically challenging issue, you know, and how that difficult customer relates to the skills that they're looking for, because, you know, you developed the ability to explain technical concepts in easy to use language because you spent all of that time, you know, helping old ladies program their computers, their cable boxes or something. And that's why, you know, you have the confidence to write technical manuals. So you want to tie in that past experience with what they're looking for. And the conclusion paragraph, it's your graceful exit. But also this is where you maybe want to talk a little bit more about why you're interested specifically in the company. You know, it's kind of like, it's a little bit flirty. You know, I'm not just interested in any job, but I'm interested in you. So, you know, make sure you do a little research on that position, that company, you know, and this is a place where you can say, you know, Humana is such an important employer in the city of Louisville that has such a positive impact on the community, and it would be an honor to work at a company that does that good work, you know. So throwing in a little bit about why you're specifically interested in that company or team can help you stand out a little bit. If you do have some kind of connection to that organization or business, that closing paragraph may also be where you put that information. But, you know, for the most part, you just want to, again, say that you appreciate their time, that you are willing to complete further application materials, and hope that you have the opportunity to speak with them. And then you just want to end the salutation. You know, one of those is just fine. Don't write love or peace out. You're probably good. You know, if you have an electronic signature, that definitely will look professional. Does anybody have any questions on cover letters? I see someone typing. And, you know, a cover letter, what's the most common mistake when it comes to cover letters? Oh, this is a very important tip. So, you know, hopefully in your job search, you will be able to do a fair amount of cutting and pasting. Again, we do want you to get in the habit of targeting your resume, really making sure that your resume and cover letter really speaks to that specific job you're applying for. And with a cover letter, hopefully you can use a lot of that same language for different jobs that you apply for. But one of the biggest mistakes, and hiring people point it out, is that people will copy and paste their cover letter and they will not change the name of the company or job title, or they may change it in the first paragraph, but forget to change it in the last paragraph where they're reinstating, that they're very interested in the cybersecurity analyst position with made up company, number 1, and then they send that cover letter to made up company number 2. Now, to me, I would just read that and think, of course, a person is applying for a lot of jobs, but to a hiring manager, that, if you say that you're a detail-oriented person, that's not a very detail-oriented thing to do. So make sure that your cover letter is, especially if you are getting in the habit of reusing your cover letters, make sure that it is targeted towards the company that you're applying for, and check it for general grammatical errors, things like that. If you can have like a job search buddy that you are sending cover letters and resumes to look over, that's great. Grammarly is a great resource that you can use for free that will review your document for spelling and grammatical errors. They'll suggest changes to make the language more concise. So I would definitely utilize that tool, and the paid version is really awesome. So that's probably the most common mistake. But really, if you're going to send a cover letter, make sure it's good, and make sure that it is not just giving information that they're going to see from their resume. And I'm actually going to provide Anika and the rest of the MAPS team with some resources, and one of them is about cover letters, and will provide has very similar information, but there's also a template, which makes it really easy to use. So, utilize that. And I would say too, if a job application says it requires a cover letter, that means you have to write one. So are there any other questions that have come up? Doesn't look like it. We are about at the end of our time, and I really appreciate everyone's time. And again, read those job descriptions, make sure that your resume and cover letter are demonstrating that you have those skills that you're looking for. And that's how you make it easy for the hiring managers to really to notice you, and to make sure that you are getting that interview that's going to get you that job. And then the other last piece of advice I will lead you to, a resume is an essential part of job searching, but applying online is not always the best way to job search. So I will be giving a presentation about LinkedIn and networking, and really utilizing your network and connections and making connections is the best way to get past that ATS. If you are not applying through the application tracking system, but if you are a referred candidate, that is the best way, the quickest way to get a job. So we'll be discussing that in June. I can't remember the exact date, but I look forward to it, and please feel free to, on June 1st, great. Please come prepared with questions. And thank you everyone for your time, and have a good rest of your night.